Let's start with a dream. It's a dream we've all had while staring at a bank account that looks a bit too empty, or while looking at the price of a new car that seems completely out of reach. You're sitting there, maybe eating some cheap instant noodles, and a thought pops into your head that seems so simple, so brilliant, that you wonder why no one has done it yet. You think, wait a minute. The government owns the printer. They literally make the paper that everyone in the world is fighting over. So why are they being so stingy? Why don't they just hit the print all button and send $1 million to every single citizen's doorstep? No more poverty. No more debt. No more struggling to pay the rent. Just vibes, vacations, and luxury for everyone. It sounds like the most obvious solution in human history. But if a country actually tried to do it, they would quickly realize that they haven't discovered a shortcut to prosperity. Instead, they've just written a recipe for an economic horror movie. To understand why, we need to leave our world behind for a moment and visit a place called Stickland. It's a tiny, peaceful island in the middle of a vast ocean. On this island, there are exactly 10 people. Let's call them the Sticks. Now, the economy of Stickland is very basic. There is one bakery that makes exactly 10 loaves of fresh, crusty bread every single day. That is the total amount of food available. And to keep things organized, the island's government has issued exactly 10 gold coins. If you do the math, the situation is very stable. 10 coins are chasing 10 loaves of bread. This means that, naturally, one loaf of bread costs exactly 1 gold coin. Our friend Stic is one of these residents. He spends his entire day picking coconuts or fixing huts to earn his 1 coin. At the end of the day, he takes that coin to the bakery, buys his 1 loaf of bread, and goes home satisfied. This is a balanced economy. The money represents the work Stic did, and the bread is his reward. But Stic is an ambitious guy. He's tired of just having 1 loaf of bread. He wants 2 loaves, maybe 3, and he's eyeing a fancy pair of tropical sunglasses he saw in a catalog. He thinks the only thing standing between him and his best life is a lack of coins. So late one night, Stic sneaks into the governor's hut where the grand money press is kept. He finds the secret switch and starts cranking the handle. Gold coins start pouring out of the machine like a waterfall. Clink, clink, clink. Stic doesn't just print for himself, though. He wants to be a hero. He prints 90 more coins and decides to share the wealth. He runs through the village, dropping 9 extra coins into every single person's mailbox. By the time the sun rises, the total amount of money on the island has jumped from 10 coins to 100 coins. Everyone wakes up, checks their mail, and the island erupts in joy. They are rich. They are all millionaires. They throw their tools into the bushes and sprint toward the bakery. Stic is at the front of the line, feeling like a genius. He slams 10 coins on the counter and shouts for the baker to give him all 10 loaves. But the baker isn't smiling. Why? Because the baker looks behind Stic and sees 9 other people, all holding 10 coins each, all shouting for bread. The baker still only has 10 loaves. He didn't get a faster oven overnight. He didn't get more flour. He only has the same 10 loaves he had yesterday. If he sells them all to Stic for the old price, the other 9 people will be furious, and more importantly, the baker realizes he can't buy anything for himself anymore because everyone else will be raising their prices too. So, the baker grabs a piece of charcoal, crosses out the price of 1 coin, and writes 10 coins. Stic is frozen. He has 10 times more money than he had yesterday, but he can still only afford exactly 1 loaf of bread. His mountain of gold hasn't made him richer. It has just made the coins worth less. This is the first and most painful lesson of economics. Money is not wealth. Wealth is the bread. Wealth is the coconuts. Wealth is the stuff we can actually eat, wear, and use. Money is just the measuring stick we use to divide that wealth. If you double the number of measuring sticks, but keep the amount of stuff the same, the sticks just get smaller. You haven't created value. You just added a zero to the price tag. This phenomenon is called inflation, and it's about to get a lot worse for the citizens of Stickland. Stic stands there, staring at the sign that says 10 coins for one loaf of bread, and he feels like he's been punched in the gut. He thought he was a hero, but instead, he's just standing in a longer line with heavier pockets and an emptier stomach. But here is where the story of Stickland gets truly dangerous. You see, the governor of the island sees the angry crowd and the rising prices, and he panics. He doesn't want a revolution. He wants people to be happy. So he comes up with what he thinks is a second brilliant plan. He says to himself, if the bread now costs 10 coins, and my people only have 10 coins, they are back to being poor. I will simply print 1,000 coins for everyone. Then they can definitely afford the bread, even at the higher price. The printing press starts screaming. It runs day and night. Soon, every stickman on the island is carrying around giant sacks of gold. Stic now has 10,000 coins in his hut. He feels like a king again. He runs back to the bakery, ready to buy every loaf for the next year. But as he approaches, he sees something terrifying. The bakery is closed. The windows are boarded up. There is a sign on the door that says, "Out of business. Money is worthless." This is the second big lesson. Printing money doesn't just make things expensive. It destroys the reason people work. Think about the baker. The baker needs flour to make bread. But the person who grows the wheat sees that the price of shovels has gone up 1,000%. So, the wheat farmer asks the baker for 1,000,000 coins for a bag of grain. The baker realizes that even if he sells a loaf of bread for 50,000 coins, by the time he walks across the street to buy a new pair of shoes, the shoemaker will have raised his prices to 100,000. The money is losing value so fast that holding onto it is like holding an ice cube in the desert. It melts away before you can use it. In this situation, the baker decides it's better to just stay home and eat his own bread than to sell it for magic paper that won't buy him anything tomorrow. This is called hyperinflation. It's a fancy word for an economic death spiral. When prices move too fast, the entire system of trade breaks down. People stop producing things because there's no stable way to get paid. On Stickland, the Sticks stop picking coconuts, they stop fixing huts, and they stop baking. Everyone has millions of coins, but the shelves are empty. You can't eat gold coins, and you can't build a house out of paper bills. Now you might be thinking, wait, why doesn't the governor just pass a law? Just tell the baker he is legally forbidden from raising the price. Keep the bread at 1 coin by force. This is what we call price controls, and historically, it makes the nightmare even worse. If the governor forces the baker to sell bread for 1 coin, but the baker's costs are now 100 coins, the baker loses money every time he bakes a loaf. So what does he do? He stops baking entirely. He hides his bread and sells it in secret, in the middle of the night, to people willing to pay the real price under the table. This is the birth of the black market. The official stores stay empty, the government gets angry, and the economy turns into a game of hide and seek where everyone loses. So, if printing money is a disaster and fixing prices is a failure, how do we actually make Stickland rich? How do we get to a place where Stic can actually have those 2 loaves of bread and the fancy sunglasses? The answer is the only one that actually works, but it's the one that takes effort, productivity. Imagine if, instead of sneaking into the governor's hut to print money, Stic spent his time inventing a better way to climb trees. He builds a ladder. Now, instead of picking 5 coconuts a day, he picks 50. Suddenly, there are more coconuts on the island than people know what to do with. Because there are so many coconuts, the price of a coconut starts to drop. Stic is now richer, not because he has more coins, but because his 1 coin can now buy 10 coconuts instead of 1. Then, the baker buys a bigger, more efficient oven that can bake 50 loaves of bread at once using the same amount of wood. Now there is plenty of bread for everyone. This is real economic growth. It isn't about the number of shiny circles in your pocket. It's about the number of goods and services available for those circles to buy. When a country's economy grows, it's because the people have found ways to create more value, more gadgets, more food, and more medicine. Wealth is the stuff. Money is just the medium. If you want everyone to have more, you have to create more stuff, not more medium. The reason the government can't just print wealth is that wealth has to be earned through innovation, labor, and resources. If you try to skip the work part and go straight to the money part, you end up like our friend Stic, standing on a pile of gold in a world where a single egg costs $1 billion and the stores are all empty. To wrap this up, think of money like a ticket to a giant global movie theater. If the theater has 100 seats and the usher sells 100 tickets, everything is fine. But if the usher suddenly prints 1 million tickets and lets everyone in, the seats don't magically multiply. People will be fighting over the same 100 chairs, and the price to bribe someone for a seat will skyrocket. The only way to get more people into the theater is to build a bigger theater. So, the next time you see a headline about a country printing trillions, or you wonder why your paycheck doesn't go as far as it used to, remember Stickland. Remember that a stable currency is a promise that the work you do today will still be worth something tomorrow. When a government breaks that promise by flooding the world with easy money, they aren't helping the poor. They are burning the map that everyone uses to find their way through the economy. True prosperity is slow, it's steady, and it requires us to actually build things. There are no shortcuts. You can't print a loaf of bread, and you definitely can't print a better future. Stic eventually learned his lesson. He put the coins back, burned the extra paper, and went to work on a better ladder. It was harder than turning a handle on a press, but at the end of the day, when he sat down with his 2 loaves of bread, he knew they were real. And that's a lot better than being a billionaire in a world where you're starving to death.